how many of you are using completely different systems to what you used 5 years ago? Wow, there you go. Right, technology. Let's ask our panel to introduce themselves.
Hi everybody, it's David Sheldrake, a Sales 360 Manager at Power, looking after UK and US suppliers from a sales and direct sales software and interacting with brokers.
We know Paul, so we'll skip him.
Hi, Richard Price, MD and founder of TICT. Essentially, we set up the business in 2020 with the simple premise of why the bloody hell is SME energy so complicated and done like that. We've simplified that and now do sort of 10,000 switches a year, so that's why I'm here.
Thanks. Hi all, Alan Fordham, Commercial Director at Systems Link. We are an energy management and bureau software provider to energy consultants and large end users.
Where is technology now, dare I say? Because I used to work at the BBC, and for years it was still operating on MSS-DOS or MS-DOS, right? And I bet you there's some people here running some really old versions of Windows. The world has become completely integrated with technology, and many of the criticisms are the energy sector hasn't shifted quick enough. It's still lagging compared to others. Is that changing because people are finding out what the bloody hell there is to sort out and trying to sort it out? Let's start with you, please, Richard.
Yeah, from a software perspective, you've got to take into account now that there is, I think, a lot of good software companies out there that do very different things.
Yeah.
So we've got to take into account, we've got Paul with us, industry data, we've got people running carbon reduction reporting. And from our selfish perspective, we're a sales software engine and an insights data team. And it's how we're able to try and bring all those things into one place to give you that journey. We've got TPIs, we've got suppliers here, a lot of people working in sales in here today. And ultimately, it always starts with sales is the service.
Yeah.
You've got to provide that information right up front at the start, and it's that integrated path of varying software technologies to give the right advice on carbon reduction, but you're doing it right at the start. You're educating your consumers, you're educating downstream from directors to sales agents, but I think there's a lot of good technology out there, it just needs to all come together.
Richard, from your point of view?
Yeah, so I see it as there's almost a disconnect. I think there's some crazy innovation going on and sort of James Bond style work, but more so on the sort of generation side, the net zero side. And I feel like there's a disconnect between the cold face of energy in terms of energy brokers and energy suppliers often on legacy systems.
Yeah.
And I feel like that disconnect is getting further and further apart. And to the point, is energy behind the times? I believe it is. And I think that that's because there's so many customers on legacy systems and it's so hard for these big suppliers to pivot. And then there's a trickle-down effect to the rest of it.
Agreed. I think that technology has advanced a lot within the industry, and now more people are using software of some sort rather than moving away from having data in Excel and Access databases. One of the things we're seeing a lot more is work in terms of integrations, direct integrations like APIs, and people are being more creative about what they want to integrate with, which is great. Historically it was just integrating with, from our perspective, with CRMs and finance systems, but now people are wanting to integrate with data warehouses, asset management systems, carbon accounting systems, renewable technology systems. Where I think the industry is possibly still behind is a lot of these APIs are much more prevalent and automated in other industries. And in our industry, where we've got so much data, be it consumption data or industry flow data, it's still all very siloed, and people are doing things in one system and doing it in another, rather than having that kind of joined up approach, which would make for much more a better customer experience and a lower cost to serve generally.
Paul, from your point of view? We're behind, aren't we, compared to other sectors?
Yes, very simply put, we are. We're catching up, and obviously there's no way that Octopus Energy would have grown to that many customers if technology wasn't a factor. I think when you interact with your bank today and then you go and interact with energy, you feel upset. You want your experience to be the exact same. I think you require organisations such as the one sitting on the stage today to help you do that, because we did 120 million API calls up until the start of this year. We've done 138 million since the 1st of January alone. this year. I've had to change my technology suite 3 times this year just to keep up with it. But that's because customers are wanting more and more. So I think it's there to help. I think the technology itself just gets some great people in. Yeah. The real answer is why are you doing it? And so making sure that your customer journeys and your interactions with your customers are serving a purpose and serving what they need and doing it in the best and most frictionless way, rather than the technology itself being the core part of that.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think, again, it just relates back to education for me. It's always about, we've just heard the last conversation, and from my perspective, I think suppliers, when educating around things such as net zero, it's always at the higher end consumer, it's the bigger customers. But how does it resonate with
the people who are going to make the change? Absolutely.
Yeah, how does it resonate with them? And ultimately, there is technology out there that can help that sales journey, but provide the service. It opens the door to other products and services for all the brokers and the suppliers to actually engage better with customers. So it just requires it all tying together.
Is there this legacy problem that I think you're talking about, really? I mean, the thought of the grid being changed is billions, if not trillions. The connections, whether we go to hydrogen or a mix of gases, if we go to electrification, there's still a lot of stuff that's on old pipes, using old dials and old analog systems. And is that not really the crux of why the energy sector is behind in this technological revolution? Is it's still relying on clunky pipes and things like that to do the heavy lifting, and the technology that's reading that, it's really difficult to change. And that's what, when I speak to DSOs, they've got switchgear that's 80 years old, 90 years old, but it's still working, right? And then they go, well, we could change it all, but then that would add loads of cost and charges, and where you go. So is there that issue that the technology that fundamentally builds the energy infrastructure is part of the limiting factor to do the technology of tomorrow?
I'm going to say you could probably make that argument, but that's probably not the biggest challenge that we're facing today. That technology is old, but it is still functioning very well. We're owned by all of the DNOs. I can tell you some of the conversations I have with what they do with changing the voltage at a household level to be able to create more energy on the grid. Even if it's on old technology, it's absolutely
It can be done. Right.
So it can be done. I think where we are behind is the customer's perception of what can be done. And again, it comes down to, it's not whether you're on Amazon or AWS or if you're on Microsoft, it's about taking that technology and turning it into something that's important for the customer, helping them understand what they can achieve with that new technology and having that conversation with them. Because we can build the best things in the world. Take a look at, I think it was Tempest Energy. They were doing demand flexibility 15, 20 years ago. They went out of business because it didn't work. We're now in a position where all the tools are available in the energy market. We just need those new providers and those TPIs to come in and convey that message in the right way to customers.
But hasn't the real crux of why this hasn't worked is the smart meter rollout, right? It's successful to a stage, but it also limits people. If you want to sign up to Oxford, you've got to have a smart meter to take part in flexibility. You've got to have these issues. And, I've got, my mum's 82, still uses British Gas, and, because that's what she got as a legacy system, has a meter, doesn't bother with any of that, doesn't want a smart meter. And there are businesses out there who don't want people haven't changed that. Is that one of the issues that the government has put in the pressures? You've got the whole push for more digitalisation, but there's a reticence amongst end users, and also there's a reticence in terms of kind of the speed, the qualification, the skills for the engineers to make these changes to digitalise energy.
Probably got not enough time in the world to talk about the smart metering program. Panorama can do it justice.
Yeah, exactly.
I honestly doubt we can.
But you know what I mean? That's just kind of a real kind of litmus test of where we are.
You might have seen a LinkedIn post that I put out today, just randomly because I was on the train wasting. We've got data that shows that if you're on an elective half-hourly tariff, so you are engaged, you're less likely to switch, and those that aren't are switching more. I think the point here is what comes first. So the smart meter rollout's at about 60%.
Yeah.
I've got PhDs that we're sponsoring at universities that are telling me that it's never going to get to 80%, right? But does that matter? Because if only 80% of the market wants it, if the propositions are out there for them to really understand that, and the TPIs are saying, look, we can save you thousands of pounds on your energy bill, you just need to install a smart meter, that's a much more important message than Gaz and Lecky, what they were previously, or Einstein as it is now, saying, install a smart meter. I think the market's catching up. Market-wide will make the cost of energy at a half-hourly level very apparent, and people will have to start paying it. I bet you'll see the switch to smart metering when you can do something about it then happen a lot more quickly. If we can get the propositions in the market now, we might be able to accelerate it. I think there's just that balance is hard to find at the moment.
Anyone want to add on that about the technological gap before I move on to AI?
Just a point. I mean, I think I agree that the technology is there for the people that want it.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a bit of a data geek. I love my smart meter at home, and I love sitting there in the dark between 4 and 5 p.m.
Okay, whatever you're doing, that's it.
Octopus are going to pay you £1 a meg,
Yeah.
But the point is, I think not everybody's there.
No.
But people will get there, and right now it's there for the people that are interested in it. And of course, some of this might be somewhat generational.
Yeah. AI. I'm assuming all of you are across it and there. Lots of different conversations going on in the sector about the use of AI. Some worrying ones about whether it replaces people in the sales cycle, all of that sort of stuff. How do you see the AI system sort of rollout affecting the technology that will work for these guys, how they interact with their customers? Richard, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, so for me, it's back to the gap. I think AI is obviously advancing at a rate of knots, but I think in terms of is AI the future of pricing, yes, I think it can be in terms of demand forecasting and accurate pricing and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like that's years away in that, again, back to the point before, many suppliers haven't updated systems yet for TCR bandings. They're going for a whole legacy change around market-wide half-hourly settlement. AI is miles away from being implemented well within this industry, I believe. I think other industries are going to be a hell of a lot faster, and we've got a hell of a lot of catching up to do.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think it's what's important to the industry. Again, I look at the people in the room. We've got broker suppliers here, and AI-driven pricing doesn't take the realism that relationships are needed. You've still got to speak to customers, and you've still got to build those relationships. Yes, it may generate a base price quicker by building up historic data and being able to look at time of use tariffs, but I think AI can be used across many different facets that could be more beneficial. For example, we're in a multicultural society. What about AI using contract pads in different languages so everybody understands what they are signing, right, yeah, or sending bills out in different languages? AI can be utilised in lots of different ways. Is it going to be drastic? Is it going to be long in terms of pricing? Yes, but still, fundamentally, from my perspective, it's the people in this room that make it tick, and it's all about the relationships with the consumers.
So you see it more of an enabler for better communication rather than, offering quicker pricing so people can make a smarter decision. Done.
Absolutely. I think it can generate quicker pricing, which is great for everybody in here in terms of response times and dealing with clients. But ultimately, there still needs the human nature sat in the middle, dealing with the client, explaining to them, educating them. And that's the way I see it.
Where I see AI being beneficial is with all the data. We're talking about market-wide half-hourly settlement. Yeah. We've got all this data, and frankly, a lot of people are doing very little with the data. Perhaps it's useful to suppliers, but you've got most customers, even large energy users, not doing much with the data. So where I can see it being useful is if I think about our own solution, we have an alarm system, and it looks at your historic data, it understands what your normal is, and it starts to tell you, okay, you've used more than you should have in this half hour. It does this kind of thing and normalizes for temperature that kind of thing. Where I think it gets really interesting is where you start to plug that in to publicly available data sources. So an example being, actually we know this building is a school. Yeah. Actually we can tell you how many pupils are in that school. We can tell you what the deck rating is. We know what the roof size is. We know what the insulation is. Suddenly you've got this data where you could say, well, actually this school could understand that between 4 and 6 on a weekday evening, you're in the 95th percentile of usage. You're doing something statistically you shouldn't. And I think that's the kind of insights that people want, because the trouble with all this data is you can give it to people, but they don't want to spend much time looking for the problem. They need the data to hit them in the face with exactly what the problem is and what to do with it. And I just think you can really get clever with that.
You raise a very important point, because local authorities, we speak to a lot of them on Energy Live News and Fusion Net Zero, and they are, obviously, the government is pushing out the warm homes. It's pushing out massive infrastructure changes, more schools, more hospitals, all of that. And that data of where things are that fit into the net zero commitments that the local authorities have made, that is a big knowledge gap at present. Is that where things like the AI could help? So it allows the TPIs to use these tools to say, can you understand what's going on in your business? Anyone on that point?
Well, I think naturally it will help. It would help, but
you still think it's them having a chat, do you?
Yeah, I still think there's so much miseducation, and that is where it starts. The reason we go through different technology stacks. Great, we can look at AI and look at how we optimize energy. Guess what? It's a different technology stack you need to buy. It comes down to fundamental education right at the start, providing the right service, your service through sales, your service through your customer service, education. People know what they're agreeing, what they're signing, they get a better understanding. So I'm down the education path.
Humans. Right, humans, not robots. Cyber security. Now, I'm sure, I hope this is 100%. You've all got cyber protocols, yes? Yeah, thank God for that. Right. It's going to get worse, all right? And we can't hide away from the fact where we are globally. There'll be more cyber attacks. Energy, you've probably all read the stuff that's gone on about how many attacks have happened. And I happen to know that, as I'm sure you're aware, DNOs are regularly being targeted. How important is the ability for the TPIs to understand the cyber risks, or do they just outsource that? And what are you guys doing about protecting your relationships and the data, which is going to be the vital, most important thing for all of this transition, the customer data? Anyone want to start on cyber?
I think you outsource the risk unless you're pretty big. The reason I say that is because anybody that's storing their data in AWS today, they've got more cyber experts than anybody else in this country. Your data's safer there, just trust them to do it, because you never keep up with it. It's too fast.
You won't.
But cyber's only half of the answer. All of our training at Electrolink, we let AWS handle the cyber part, but it's all about the individuals. So training the individuals to understand what threats
their behaviours
like, behaviours and what online looks like. We host phishing attempts on our emails all the time, and it's always quite interesting when SMT gets caught. So it's not just cyber; it's more back to David. It's the team that you have around you, and making sure that they're aware of what the best practice or the average practice needs to be to keep them up to date, and then let the technology handle itself.
Do you want to add on something?
I agree. I think if you're smaller, outsource it. AWS is who we use, and again, very, very secure. Regular pen tests to keep testing whether that data is secure, and gives you advice and kind of red, amber, green, what you need to be doing about it, and it's just a general hygiene.
Is there a human element that's so huge in this, Alan? Like it is the phishing emails, or it's not even that. It's just data input. It's just the way people transfer documents, drives and things like that. Is that all now going to be more important for the TPIs to be aware of?
I think so. I guess firstly, just to echo others on the stage, outsource it. AWS seems to be doing well on this stage. You
haven't got shares. Anyone from AWS here now?
It's about having, if your ISO certification in place, your Cyber Essentials, and some of these accreditations require you not just to have the technological security, but the behavioural ones as well, the pen testing, and unless seek external advice, because you can have all the security, but it could be just a behavioural thing that lets you down. In our business,
we're all capable of making those mistakes all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the phishing emails are actually they're so good now. Yeah. They're so good. And the real problem is often that you open an email when we're on the phone or on a Teams call, we don't pay proper attention. You click that link, and you can be in a whole world of trouble.
The only bit we haven't really talked about is the main technology, which I don't really think is vital for this audience, but there are big technological shifts coming, right? In terms of battery technology, in terms of all the way that we take data and we use that, maybe new sources of generation, all of that. How clued up do TPIs need to be about the bigger, more capital project technology space? Or is that really something they shouldn't really worry about? They should just be looking at kind of knowing their customer and then making sure the transactional side of technology is the thing that matters, because that will sort of take care of itself through the market. What's your view?
I hope they're no more than me, first and foremost. No, I think personally it's a case of following the industry, not necessarily the technology changes. Market-wide half-hourly is something everybody needs to be educated on, and that is something to focus on, where actually...
Whether it's a lithium battery or an aluminium, that really doesn't matter, does it? Yeah,
it doesn't really matter. But again, it's for me, it's all again led by the suppliers in terms of what they want to push out. But I would personally focus on the industry type changes. Yeah. That's the bit you've got to be educated on, because bills are going to change, documents are going to change, and you're going to have to educate your customers. So that's what I would be focusing on.
There are some huge changes coming. So there's the TPI code of practice.
Yep.
A market-wide half-hourly settlement. You've had a market where 350,000 sites in this country have been able to buy energy at a half-hourly level for businesses, and TPI is supporting them. They're even listed as a separate category in Cornwall Insights. You've then got 2.2 to 4 million, depending which number you believe, small, medium enterprises that buy on a kind of matrix or price. In 5 years, they're all buying half-hourly. Yeah. That is a huge technological shift and knowledge shift to say, do you know that simple price we gave you last time we contracted with you? Now it's 48 different prices per day, and it could be every single day if you're on a dynamic tariff. The technology needs to catch up with where regulation is taking it. And by the way, TPI code of practice means that you need to understand everything about that as well. Yeah. So I think there is a huge amount of work for TPIs to do to become more sophisticated in not just the SME side, in matrix pricing, and come up to the INC side. But there's value in that. INC contracts are worth more. Their ability to flex and play in new markets that the other technologies, such as battery and solar, are going to bring, are going to make that relationship valuable to both the customer and the TPI. If you can get that right, there's more value to be had by both people. You've grown the pie.
Yeah. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I agree. I think the challenge is every TPI, even now, has a tipping point around when something's economical to serve or not. Of course. And so at the lower end of the market, are you going to be able to offer the kind of human, as we've kind of mentioned, consultative advice, and are you going to make that economical? I think you need to find more efficient ways of processing those lower value sales. I think with the market-wide half-hourly, I think the market will correct itself in that small businesses don't want to be experts on energy, and they want it to be simplistic. So even though the things under the car bonnet are going to be more complicated in terms of price points and everything else, the offering to the market will have to be simple in order for the customer to understand it.
Yeah. Alan, do you want to add anything?
Not too much to add, other than I think with regards to technological advances and understanding hardware sort of changes, I think it's
just interesting to know, isn't it, rather than vital to what they need to do.
Absolutely, and probably most people are not going to have experts within their business, but that's where I think it's about working with partners who do have that expertise.
Yeah.